Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be reviewing the best moments from the JD Vance versus Simp Walz debate. We are going to be fact-checking Simp Walz's lies, and we are going to watch the mainstream media lose their minds about this one. Now, off the bat, JD Vance was miles ahead of Walz in terms of rhetoric, and he was just so composed, which was very impressive. Now, I was very critical of Vance when Trump first chose him, probably because I was a bit upset that Vivek didn't get chosen. But I'm starting to really regret doubting the guy now, because he is sharp as a tack, and he knows his rhetorical judo well. And also, he came across as very humble. He was able to say, I was wrong about X and Y. I've learnt this and that from the American people, rather than just lying about things. And for a politician, it's very refreshing. Anyway, the first two segments of the debate were about climate change and abortion. And I think that Ann Coulter summed it up the best here when she said, burning questions from the lady moderators: climate change, abortion, school shootings. Next issue, astrology and veganism.
Can I give you a hug?
No, let's get on with the question.
Okay.
So the abortion topic is always going to be a tricky one for the Republicans, but I think Vance handled himself pretty well, and then at the end managed to turn the tables a little bit and put Walz under pressure, hold his feet to the fire about the barbaric, botched abortion bill that he signed. Check it out.
From abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But
this,
how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be...
Now, obviously, this is another lie, and it appears as though Walz didn't even have an answer, as if he didn't see this coming or something. So he decided to just not answer JD Vance's question at all, which was an L. And here are the facts of the matter. On the bill, it strips out Minnesota's existing requirement that reasonable measures can be taken to preserve the life and health of born-alive infants, replacing it with requirements for care, which the bill's House author, Representative Tina Liebling, has described as mere comfort care. Under the new language, an infant could be denied life-saving care and allowed to die. Anyways, onto the border now, where JD Vance points out that Mexican drug cartels are operating freely within the country. To which point, Tim Walz nods his head and agrees.
I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country, and we know that they use children as drug mules, and it is a disgrace, and it has to stop.
And Vance obliterated him throughout this entire segment of the debate.
Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president.
And Walz's response, which is not really worth replaying if I'm honest, was obviously to say, well, we had this bill that you guys didn't pass. And they rightfully didn't pass it because in that same bill, it sends $60 billion to Ukraine whilst the country is underwater. And whilst people can't put food on their table. No thanks. And on the topic of immigration, here's Tim Walz saying how much of a privilege it is to have so many refugees in Minnesota and how this is the future of the country.
We have more refugees per capita than any other state. That's not just morally a good thing. It's our economic and cultural future. This beautiful diversity we see out in Worthington when I'm there, you see 50 languages spoken in the school.
And just to rub salt on the wounds here, check out what the Border Patrol Union came out and said during the debate. The border experts want real Donald Trump to be president so that the border can be secured without compromise. Only the drug cartels and Democrats want an open border. That's what Border Czar Harris has given them and will continue to do in the future. Straight from the horse's mouth. How can you argue with that? But the best moment of the debate for me was when Vance really put his foot down with the moderators.
And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on.
Guys, when it comes to events like this, we know how the liberal mainstream media is going to try and frame this. This is why I rely on ground news to see through any bias and suppression of important angles. Our sponsors gather news sources from around the political spectrum so readers can compare coverage to truly understand what is going on. And we can see here, this story about Vance being significantly more eloquent than Trump has 319 different sources to reference. And when we go into the sources from the left, we can see that our favorite source, LGBTQ Nation, says Tim Walz got 3 great attacks on JD Vance during the vice presidential debate. And as far as I'm concerned, Tim Walz can have them. On the right, and a much more entertaining looking article from The Federalist says 15 best memes about JD Vance wiping the floor with Tim Walz in vice presidential debate. And guys, for Rattlesnake TV listeners, Ground News is offering a massive 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use. So all you've got to do is hit those links below or go to ground.news/rattlesnake. That's ground.news/rattlesnake, or even just hit the QR code on the screen right here and keep yourself armed and dangerous with a healthy news diet. And don't forget that when you sign up with Ground News using my link, you are not only supporting a great startup, but you're supporting the channel directly. Let's get back into the video.
So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
So Vance did well here because there was a no fact-checking rule for this debate. And they were clearly advised by their puppet masters to get the last word fact checks in to try and make him look bad. He was right to not stand for that. And if he didn't do that, then they would have tried to be sneaky about it all night. So really, really effective there. And even Chris Cuomo had the right take about this, which tells you all that you need to know about how ridiculous it is that they cut him off during this segment, during this very important part of the debate, when they were the ones who fact-checked him.
Well, there you have it. And look, Vance was right, okay? There's nuance to it, but the bigger problem is why he was moved on. We've got so much to get to. This says who? You know what I mean? Like, what is the schedule here? So you have a list of topics? That's not what it's about. It's about how the American people can access these two men and the two theories and the narratives, and you got to let them have their speak.
But It wouldn't be mainstream media coverage if there weren't some absolutely criminal takes. And there are many more criminal takes to come later in this video, but check out MSNBC accusing JD Vance of mansplaining.
Like muting powers. Yeah. And I actually think if you're a woman, that might be the worst moment JD Vance had, because he was going to mansplain right over that mute button. He was, and again, I don't pretend to know how everyone will react to this. I think that a lot of women in positions of authority that should command respect just by virtue of that dynamic will see themselves in some dude that disrespected them and talked over. I mean, there was a moment like that with then vice presidential in the Harris-Pence debate where she's
mansplaining, hey? Some very high IQ coverage happening over there at MSNBC. Now, I would say that easily the most awkward part of the entire debate was when Tim Walz had to answer for lying about being at the Tiananmen Square massacre of 1989.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress.
Quick interruption, guys. If you like this video, if you're feeling armed and dangerous, then chuck a thumbs up below. It really does help me out. And also, if you're getting value, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's get back to it.
For 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
So you lied is basically what you're saying. And here's a clip of Walz blatantly saying that he was there.
When did you live in China?
Late 80s.
Okay.
So, you know, I was there. I see this happening in Hong Kong as a more serious note. I was in Hong Kong on June 4th, 1989, when, of course, Tiananmen Square happened. And I was in China after that. It was very strange because, of course, all outside transmissions were blocked, Voice of America, and, of course, there was no phones or email or anything. So I was kind of out of touch. It took me a month to know the Berlin Wall had fallen when I was living there.
That is not a blunder. That is a blatant lie. Bro literally dropped the dates and everything. You are not a knucklehead. You are a liar. Not good. And we already know that Simp Walz also lied about being in armed combat. So really not a good track record there of embellishing your own bravery. Anyways, easily the most bizarre moment of the debate was when Tim Walz said that he's made friends with school shooters.
So I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time.
I'm sorry, what did you just say? And look, I know that this was a gaffe, but when you say that sort of thing, you open yourself up to some serious memes. And the Trump team wasted absolutely no time. They put out this tweet straight away saying, Trump Vance 24, not friends with school shooters. And oh boy, did the rest of the memes about Tim Walz's performance come in thick and fast. There I was on the deck of the Titanic. Nancy Pelosi doing a new trade, sell Walz, buy Vance. Kamala Harris, what do you mean he said he's friends with school shooters?
Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years? And the answer is, you're running me, not mine.
So another very strong moment of the debate was on the economy for Vance, an issue that the American people firmly side with Donald Trump on, and rightfully so. And Vance did a very good job of pointing out just the predicament that Tim Walz finds himself in.
Honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
So Walz had nothing to say on that. He was in a real pickle there, and it appeared as such. Well played by JD, and he also had another strong moment about housing.
First of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country. It's why we have massive increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now,
and if the lies weren't enough, and if the pickly situations weren't enough, Walz also lied about saying that he doesn't want to take away people's gun rights.
No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort?
And here's what Walz has had to say previously about this. Here's an article from the Minnesota Star Tribune where Tim Walz says, after listening hard to Minnesotans, I support an assault weapons ban. So once again, just blatant lying. And it's not like he's changed his position and he's consciously changing his position and admitting as much. No, this is just outright bullshitting the public. And yet another example of this was during the discussion about free speech.
Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't wear masks.
Senator, the governor does have the floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Senator, the governor does have the floor for 1 minute to respond to you.
Yeah, well, I don't run Facebook.
Now, we know that the Biden administration during the pandemic put a lot of pressure on Meta and other companies for that matter, to silence disinformation and hate speech. And there are many, many other cases of this. But if that wasn't bad enough, here's a clip of Tim Walz blatantly speaking out against the First Amendment rights of the American people.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
So just lie upon lie upon lie. And this was just a crushing victory for JD Vance. And after it, the seething cope from the mainstream media was just beautiful and just glorious to watch. Let's have a look at some of the highlights.
It's the audacity. I agree with you that we're in year 9 and no one knows how to cover the audacity. The audacity is it someone should have said, stop it, stop. Are you effing kidding me? And they should have dropped that F-bomb, right? I mean, they should have just, this is a debate. This may be the only chance people have to see the difference.
And so I think that the people who want the fist fight are the base of the Democratic Party. Democrats want to see someone get up there and give a knuckle sandwich to Donald Trump. That's what they want. But that is not
that. I mean, I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe, yeah.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced.
So just a resounding W for J.D. Vance and Trump for that matter. Tim Walz has now become a meme, and J.D. Vance has done a lot to prove the doubters wrong, myself included. But that's absolutely a good thing. So guys, if you liked the video, don't forget to chuck a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to watch another one. You can find all my links if you'd like to send me abusive messages below. And also, if you'd like to watch another video, right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.